Hi, I'm Jack, and welcome back because I'm going to talk to you guys about Season 6 of Lucifer, which is also the final season. And before I start talking about it, don't forget to let me know down below in the comment section, what are your thoughts about this season? Don't forget to let me know down below, and don't forget to follow me on social media. My username is at the bottom of the screen, and you can also find it in the description. So don't forget to do that while you're at it. And this is also a spoiler review. I will talk spoilers, whether they're big or small. So if you haven't seen the season yet, go watch it on Netflix and then come back here. And with that said, let's get started. Set after the events of Season 5, Lucifer has been chosen to become the next god, and he must deal with what that means for him, his friends, his family, and the rest of the universe, and he must decide whether he's going to become the next god or not, and also has to encounter Rory, an angel who comes into LA wanting revenge on Lucifer. And so I could kick off the positives. I thought the acting is terrific as usual. Tom Ellis is just so good as the character. Ever since we first saw him in the start of the show, I really like his charisma that he has on the show. He has such a great screen presence, and especially for a character like Lucifer, he's done a really good job with all of these comedic moments and even his witty one-liners, and even with his iconic sayings like detective. And seeing him knowing that he is not necessarily the devil anymore and that he's now supposed to be the next god, that is really interesting to me. And it's really cool how they decided to tackle it this season, because, spoilers, they could have go ahead and just have this whole season be about him being God, but that's not what they did. And I really liked how they decided to take Lucifer, who's already chosen to be the next God, and they decide to stretch this whole season to being about, is this really his purpose? Does he really want to be God, or is it the right decision? And so I really like how they deal with that, and Tom Ellis does a marvelous job doing that. And I really love Lauren German as Chloe Decker, and she's really well cast as his character. And now that we're seeing her officially not a detective after the events of Season 5, it was really nice to see a much more different Chloe on the show, because we're so used to seeing her as a detective. So seeing her no longer working with the LAPD is something of interest this season. And I love all the scenes we had with her and Lucifer and all the other characters of the season. And Mazikeen is really good this season as well. I felt like after the first half of Season 5, Mace felt pretty underutilized, but I liked what they did with her this season, especially as Eve came back and they had a wedding, which was really nice and heartwarming to see. And Amenadiel, after the events of Dan's death in Season 5, I really liked how they tried to incorporate Amenadiel trying to be a rookie cop at the LAPD, because it's what Dan wanted. And I really liked how in one episode, midway through the show, they decided to have a full-on episode where Amenadiel has to solve a case, and you see him trying to navigate his way through the LAPD, and he's trying to do the right thing, but then you have people in the police and they're constantly trying to mess him up. They're trying to do things that he's not happy with, and it brings some modern day elements into all this as well, because it is also a cop show. And so I really like how they did that. And of course, I really like the actor as Amenadiel. He's done a really good job this season. All the actors bring their A game this season, especially Aimee Garcia and all these other actors on the show. So that is a major plus for this show and the season. And the second thing I really liked was, of course, how it wrapped up everything on the show. Because I was expecting Lucifer to officially be God by the end of the show. That's what I first thought. But in the end, he decided that he shouldn't be God, and so he gives it to Amenadiel, which I actually thought makes a lot more sense. I thought Amenadiel feels like the right person to be that next being. So I like that idea. And I did enjoy what they had to do with Dan, because after Season 5, when they killed him off, I knew that they were going to bring him back this season. So it left me really curious to see what they're going to do with him in the final season. And I liked it. I really did. I liked how they decided. So Dan, you find out he's in hell. He suddenly, thanks to Rory, comes back into LA. Nobody can see him except for celestial beings, and that makes certain scenes with him and Chloe and Lucifer just a lot more emotional, and it has a lot of weight because you have felt the relationship and the chemistry between all of these characters that had a relationship with Dan. So I really liked it, and seeing Dan just struggle being in LA, knowing that only Celestials can see him and that he can't interact with characters like Ella or Chloe or Trixie or Linda or any of them, and I really like that. And I really love how it ended because of how he somehow was in hell by the end of season 5, that in the end he was able to make amends, do the one thing he was guilty about, and he finally ascends to heaven, and I really like that a lot. The second thing I really like is how Chloe, because even though she did leave the LAPD in season 5 because of Lucifer and his new role as God, I also liked how it was tough for her to kind of go without being in the LAPD because of the fact that she loves being a cop and she's been there for so long that it takes some getting used to for her. So I like that in later on the season as it progressed, especially with Amenadiel. I liked how she instead becomes like another big figure in the LAPD. She gets a new role within there, especially as now Lucifer's role as God has officially changed. And of course, Ella finally finds out about Lucifer this season. She finally finds out that Lucifer is in fact the devil, but also supposed to be the next god, and that Amenadiel is an angel and all this. And because I was wondering for so long, when is she going to find out? I thought it might be last season, but turned out not to be the case. But we finally got to see her reaction to it this season, and I liked it. And I'm happy we got to see her find out by the end of the show. And one big storyline I need to mention is the Rory situation, because I really liked the plot twist that Rory is actually Lucifer and Chloe's daughter from the future. Now, I didn't expect to see that coming, and I actually enjoyed it, because I thought Rory was going to be a villain of the season from those first 3 episodes, but then they didn't go in that direction, and I really enjoyed that, because we got to see it's how Lucifer somehow vanishes in the future and never sees Chloe and them again, and Rory grows up without him, which leads to her resenting him and hating him for it. But we don't exactly know why Lucifer wasn't there. Eventually, in the end, we find out why, and I really liked how they also tied Dan's killer, Lamech, from last season into the storyline of the season. And I really liked Lucifer, Chloe, and Rory's scenes that they had all together, and especially the dynamic they all had. And there are some fun, nice moments, also some really sad moments as well. But I really liked how they told the storyline, and I thought a lot of the arcs, especially with Maze and Eve, they got to be together, and they love each other, and that's great. And you just see them how now they're just off in the world, being Maze and Eve, and I really like it, and it feels right for the characters. And the next thing I have to talk about is how the visuals look really great this season. I loved the show when it was on Fox, but once Netflix got to it, I think the show really got a lot better, because then the visuals were better, and the story, they got to shorten the stories, which makes it a lot more well-paced and a lot more engaging, and also there's a lot more aspects about the heaven, hell, angels, and demon stuff. And so season 6, they got to focus a lot more on the angel and demon stuff than the cop stuff, which is good, but I always feel a little more interested in what was happening on the more mystical side of things. And they continue to look great in season 6. And so there's a lot of things I love about Lucifer season 6. I loved a lot of the episodes, especially episode 4 or 3, the one with the animated episode where Lucifer and Chloe, they try to find out, how does Lucifer forgive somebody that he hates? And I love how they decide to go confront the very first criminal on the show in the pilot episode. And you got that animated segment, and you got to see just a lot of really emotional stuff in that episode, especially with why the villain of that first episode of the show became what he became, and seeing Lucifer kind of learn how to forgive and how to end up caring for people that he resents is really well done on the show. And it does a really good job, especially with trying to add to that story of Lucifer trying to become God, or at least building into become God, as I should put it. And one thing that I wish we got more of was heaven. I always felt like, ever with the show, we've always seen a good chunk of hell, but we never got to see a lot of heaven. We got God last season, but we never got to see much of the Silver City, and I was hoping this season we would see a lot more of it, but we only got to see it for at least 2 episodes, tops. Not for a while, though, but it looked great, but I wish we got more of it, because especially as this season was all about him, now that he's chosen as God, that I kind of wish we saw more of heaven, but we didn't, so that's one thing I wish we got to see a little more of, because I did think heaven looked great. But I did like how in the finale you got to see what heaven really looked like there, and you got to see Amenadiel as his next god, which I really like, because they could have just gone with Lucifer being God in the end, but for some reason I've always kind of had the feeling that Amenadiel was a better suit for that role. So there's that. And Linda, I think, was done a lot better this season than she was in like most of season 5, because I thought the first half of season 5 did her sort of injustice, because I liked Linda and I liked that she and Amenadiel are together, but I've always felt like that whole storyline where you find out she had a daughter that she abandoned and she suddenly came back to her life, I thought there was a lot of stuff they could do with Linda that could have worked really well, but I think they ended up not doing as much with it as they could have. And I really liked, though, this season you have Linda trying to write her book on Lucifer ever since she has been his therapist, and how she's writing the book and being Amenadiel's lover, and of course the mom to Charlie. And so I really like that, and I thought they've done her a little bit better here. And of course, that adds to the whole characters getting stories, which they all were done really well. And Eve, especially as she returned to the back half of season 5, I liked how she came back. And even though she didn't have as big of a role as she did in season 4, I liked how you got to have her back so that she can get married to Maze. And I thought it's cool that we got to see Adam, the very first man. And seeing that episode where Adam comes in trying to ruin Eve's wedding with Maze, because he still loves Eve, I like it, because we got to see another biblical figure, and we got to see their dynamic with each other, especially as Eve came from heaven down to the real world, and then you got into all this, like in season 4, and then she fell for Maze. And now they're getting together, so I really dug that. The finale, I have to mention, was very satisfying to me. I loved how in the final episode, they decide to have the episode be about Lucifer and Chloe, and they try to save Rory from Lamech, who has her captured. And this is a way for him to get to Lucifer, because Lamech wants to murder him. And because of that, they are basically endangering the fact that this is how Lucifer is told to disappear from the future, and that if he goes here, you'll never see him again. This is it. And so I loved how intense that episode was. Because the season has a lot of great emotional moments, or even intense ones, for example. And so I love how intense the episode was. The action looked really great. Visually, it's awesome. And I loved how you had seen so much development from Lucifer over the show that in the finale it paid off, because the old Lucifer could have looked at Lamech and just destroyed him, but no, he didn't. He decides, like, no, you will be punished, and I won't be the one doing it. And so I love that a lot, and it was a really emotional episode as well. And because you see Rory's life is in danger, and Lucifer, even though Lucifer has only known Rory for just a short time, you see how much he cares about her. And it was done so well. And I just love how in those final few minutes of the show, you got to see Amenadiel as God, what that's like, and Chloe in her new role at the LAPD, and Ella, and she gets a whole charity named after her. Really great. And Dan, he's in the afterlife, and he gets to be with Charlotte Richards there. So heartwarming, because ever since she died in season 3, Dan felt so angry and he felt sad. And so the fact that he finally got to have closure and got to be with her in the afterlife is really, really sweet. And seeing Linda be there for Charlie, and seeing that Charlie has wings. Woo, yay, Charlie has wings. He can officially be an angel. So, because that was also one thing I was really curious to see, as we never got to officially see, does Charlie have wings and abilities? And so we got that. Love that. And we got to see Chloe, who actually turned out to be pregnant this season, which was great. And we got to see her reveal baby Rory to the rest of Team Lucifer. Maze, Eve, Amenadiel, Linda, Ella, Carol, everybody that's in the family except for Lucifer. And I love it. It pulled all my heartstrings, and it was so emotional, and was very, very it made me really teary-eyed watching it, because I legit cried tears because of how much I loved those moments. And then you got flash forward to the future, and you see Ella. No, sorry, you don't see Ella. And then you fast forward to the future, and you see Chloe. She's on her deathbed in the future. Rory returned from the moment she disappeared, and Chloe has died of old age. And you see her in heaven. She's in the afterlife, and she sees God himself, known as Amenagod. Those who watch the show get what I said. And Amenagod decides to take Chloe home, and next up you see hell. And you see Lucifer has officially took up his next role, which isn't to become God, but instead it's to be a healer for hell, to help misguided souls overcome their guilt so that they can go to heaven. And I really dug it, because I think it fits what Lucifer is like on the show, and it fits his personality, and how he spent so much time with humans that seeing him become a therapist to misguided souls, I think, was a great way to continue his arc and even wrap it up. And then you got to see he opens the door, and he sees Chloe. And that's the first time Chloe has seen him in decades. First time Lucifer has seen her in like thousands of years, considering how time works there. And you see them, they're about to make love, and boom, the show's over. And I loved it. It was an absolutely satisfying ending. It fits the character development over the show. It feels bittersweet. It's nice. It's done well. And it easily ended Lucifer on a high note. And it makes me so glad that this show got to continue ever since it was canceled back a few years ago. And I'm so happy they got to continue the show. And I loved how it ended. It is a satisfying ending. And it is not my favorite season, but it is definitely a terrific final outing for the show. I'm going to give Lucifer Season 6 an A. And you should definitely watch it if you are a fan of the show. So, those are my thoughts on Lucifer. What did you think about the season? Don't forget to let me know down below in the comment section. I'd love to hear your thoughts on it. And thank you guys so much for watching. And don't forget to hit the like button and the subscribe button, and stay tuned for more.